Hi everyone, Allie here from TheFamilyMeeple, and today I am back with part 4 in my 2023 Top 100 Games of All Time countdown. In this episode, we are going to be looking at games 70 through 61. If you haven't checked out the first part of my list, you can find a link to the introduction and the playlist in the description below. If you want more information about how I put the list together, I highly recommend that you start with the introduction where I talk about the list that I created in 2021 and the list that I created for this year in 2023. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. Coming in at number 70 is Century: A New World. Century: A New World is a game that was published in 2019. It was originally on my list in 2021 at number 13, so this has fallen 57 places since then. Century: A New World was designed by Emerson Matsuuchi. It has artwork from Ata Kanani and Chris Williams, and it was published by Plan B Games. Century: A New World is the third in the Century trilogy that was published, and it is a worker placement game. In Century: A New World, you will have tiny little worker meeples that you will be placing out onto locations on 4 central game mats. And each of the locations will allow you to take different actions. Some of them will allow you to collect spice cubes. Some of them will allow you to convert spice cubes into other types of spice cubes. So for example, you might want to convert a yellow spice cube into a red spice cube, and you'll send your workers out to a location to do that. In Century: New World, the worker placement mechanic is fairly common. However, players can't technically block off spaces in the way that you can in a traditional worker placement game. This one works in that if you place out a worker on an empty location, you only have to place one. If there's already someone else's worker there, you can still go there, but you have to play 2 workers. And then the next person would have to play 3, and so on. When this happens, you are actually going to kick the other person's workers off of that space and return it to them in their supply. So getting kicked out of a location can be a good thing because it allows you to get your workers back without having to take a rest action on your turn and recall all of your workers. When you run out of workers, you will have to take a rest action to call them all back, and then you can start again. You are collecting the spice cubes in order to turn them in for objective cards that are at the top. The objective cards will give you points, but they will also give you symbols for set collection at the end of the game. Century: A New World is a very simple worker placement game. It's an entry-level game, as is the entire series of Century, and it's one that I have had really good success in teaching to new players. I have friends that really enjoy this one, and my mom really enjoys this one, and it's definitely one that I have liked and will keep in the collection. It is my least favorite of the 3, so spoiler, the other 2 will be showing up on the list at a later time. So that is my number 70, Century: A New World. Number 69 is Silver and Gold. Silver and Gold is a 2019 game. It was designed by Phil Walker Harding and published by Pandasaurus Games. The artwork is from Oliver Freudenreich. This game, like I said, was published in 2019. It did appear on my list in 2021. At that time, it came in at 57, so it has dropped about 12 spaces, which is actually not very much considering how many new games are yet to come on the list. This is a flip and write game where you are Xing out polyomino shapes onto island cards. So the game comes in a very small box. It's just a deck of cards, and the cards are actually all dry erase. So it comes with the dry erase markers and the cards to play. What you're going to be doing is you will have at any time 2 island cards in front of you that are different shapes and different sizes. There are several different colors on the cards, and some of them are going to be smaller islands, and then some of them are going to be larger islands. You will play over, I believe it's 4 rounds, and you will flip over a polyomino shaped card, and everyone at the table will X out that shape on one of their 2 islands that they're working on. If you can't fit that shape into either of your 2 islands, you can simply X out a single square on any of them. And your goal is to completely X out all of the squares on your island cards. Once you've completed all of the squares on your island card, you will collect that as a completed island, and you will score the points that are listed on the top at the end of the game. There are also cards that you will be collecting and completing that not only will give you end game straight victory points, but they'll also earn you points for other islands that you've completed. So for example, you might have a green island that comes with a silver seal on it, and that will actually make all of your silver cards worth extra points at the end of the game. So you can get some nice synergies in there if you get some of the island cards that have those seals on them. There's other special abilities that you'll be able to gain by crossing off items on your card, like being able to cross off an extra space anywhere you want to, collecting gold coins, which will earn you victory points, and crossing off palm trees, which will also earn you victory points. It's a very simple game. It's one that we take out with us when we go places. You can play it at dinner, at a restaurant. We've played it by the pool because everything is pretty indestructible being those dry erase cards. But it's, like I said, very simple. It's a favorite, and it's usually one that we play over and over back to back when we get it out. So that is my number 69, Silver and Gold. Number 68 is Jamaica. Jamaica is a 2016 game that was designed by Bruno Catala, Sebastian Pochon, Malcolm Braff. The artist is Matthew Lesayan, and the publisher is GameWorks. This is a 2016 game that was on my list in 2021. It came in at 33 on that list, so it has fallen 35 places, which again is not that bad. Jamaica is a very simple entry-level racing game, and in this game you will have a pirate ship that you are racing around the island of Jamaica. The way that you are racing is that you will have a deck of cards, and the way that you are going to select these cards is one player for each round will be the captain, and they will roll 2 dice, and then they will look at their cards and they will determine where each of those dice goes based on the value. One of the dice is going to go in the position for the morning action, and the other dice is going to go into the position for the evening action. On each of the cards, you will have an action on the left-hand side for the morning and the right-hand side for the evening. So once you've selected the card you're going to play, the strength of the actions is dictated by the dice position that the captain set. So for example, I might play a card that has a collect food option for the daytime, and if the dice is a value 3, then I get to collect 3 food. And then on the other side, I might have an action that says move backwards. And if the dice value is 2, then I move backwards 2 spaces on the track. There are several cards that will allow you to move forwards, backwards, collecting gunpowder, collecting food, collecting gold. You only have a set amount of space in your hull on your little board where you collect your resources. And so you'll be spending food when you stop at different locations. You'll be spending gunpowder if you are in any sort of conflict with another player because you landed on the same space. And generally speaking, your goal is to collect as much gold in your cargo bays as you can and get back around to the beginning as fast as you can. The farther you get going back around to the beginning, you will earn gold at the end, and then the person who has the most gold is the winner. This is a really fun little racing game. It's quick, it's easy to learn. I've played it with my daughters, I've played it with our friends, and it's always a blast. It's a little bit chaotic in that you don't really know what everyone else is necessarily going to do, so you can end up in conflict or combat when you didn't necessarily intend to. But because it's such a light game, those are just fun little experiences in the game itself, and it's one that I highly enjoy and definitely recommend to people to check out. So that is my number 68, Jamaica. Number 67 is the first new game on this section of the list, and it is Wayfinders, published by Pandasaurus Games. Wayfinders was published in 2019. The designer is Thomas Dagenais L'Esperance, and the artwork is from Geek. Wayfinders is a worker placement and point-to-point movement set collection game. In Wayfinders, on your turn, you will have two options. You can either place one of your workers on one of the hangar locations on the hangar board, or you can pull back all of your workers on the hangar board and then move your airplane around the 5x5 grid of tiles that's in the center of the table. Wayfinders features a modular board setup, so each time you play, it's going to be different, and there will be different tiles around the central tile to create this modular board. And there's different setup options and different mixes of the tile types that you can experiment with as well. When you're moving your airplane around the tiles on the board, you can move orthogonally, and any tile that you enter, you will have to pay to enter if there are no airstrips on that tile. Your goal is to put out airstrips on as many tiles as you can so that you can score for them at the end of the game. Some of the tiles will give you scoring opportunities, and then others will actually give you in-game abilities that you can use as well. The fun thing about Wayfinders that I enjoy the most is the way that the hangar board works. You can pull your workers off at any time you want to, but usually you'll want to wait until you have most, if not all, of your workers out on the hangar board. The trick is timing it with the other players, because when you pull your worker back, no matter what order you place them on the hangar board, if you're the first person to pull it back, you will always take the resource that's at the top of the hangar and is able to slide out of the dual layered board. So even if there's a Meeple in front of you on that particular hangar location, if they are not leaving, then when you leave, you'll take that first resource. So it's all about timing, because the resources are added to the hangar board at random, and you'll want to make sure that you get the resources that you need. The resources are used to build airstrips on the different tiles, as well as pay for traveling onto or through a tile that does not have an airstrip. It doesn't matter whose airstrip it is, it could be yours or another player's, but if there's one there, that tile's free, which makes it fun as you get into the game because you can travel farther on each of your turns. Wayfinders is a 2 to 4 player game. However, there is a solo variant that was fan-made available on Board Game Geek, which I have used and have found to be really enjoyable. It's definitely challenging, and it's a game that I am looking forward to introducing to more people, because I don't think a lot of people have heard of this one. So that is my number 67, Wayfinders. Number 66 is another game that's returning to the list after having been on the original list in 2021. It is Azul. Azul was originally on my list at number 17, so it has dropped 49 places, although it's still one of my most played games even to today. Part of that is because it's available on Board Game Arena, and it's one of my mom's favorites. It's also one of my daughter's favorites, and most of my friends as well. Everyone I've taught this game to has ended up buying their own copy for their personal collection. Azul is a 2017 game designed by Michael Kiesling. It was published by Next Move Games, which is now Plan B Games, and the artwork is from Felipe Gorin and Chris Quilliams. So if you're not familiar with Azul, Azul is a simple abstract tile placement game. In this game, you are going to draw a number of tiles, depending on the player number for the game, and place them out on these little circular discs in the middle of the table. On your turn, you're going to draft a tile or tiles from one of the discs that's in the center or from the center itself. And once you draft tiles, let's say from one of the discs, you will have to take all of the tiles that are the same color, that match. And then any that you didn't take from that disc will be moved into the center of the table and dropped on basically the floor. Once you have the tiles, you're going to place it on the left-hand side of your individual player board in one of 5 rows. Each of the rows increases in the number of tiles that's required to complete it. So the first row only requires 1 tile, the second requires 2, 3, 4, and 5. The trick is you can't place the tiles in different rows. So if you take 2 tiles, you want to be able to place both of them into the same singular row on your player board. If you have any left over that won't fit in the row you selected, then those get dropped to the bottom of your player board, and those will be worth negative points at the end of the round. Play will continue until all of the tiles have been drafted that were laid out, and then players will look at their individual player boards and they will move the first tile of each completed row over into the position on the right-hand side of their player board for their display. You will earn points for each of the tiles that moves over. If the tile is touching any other tiles that were already placed on a previous round or earlier in the current round, then you will earn points for those tiles as well. So you'll have a little bit of a compounding points happening if you can carefully plan out the order in which you complete your rows. The right-hand side board where you are going to be filling in the tiles is arranged so that there's not the same color in any column or row. So each column has one of each of the colors and each row has one of each of the 5 colors. So it's a little bit like a Sudoku puzzle in that sense. The main playing board already has everything pre-printed for you and everyone is playing with the same pre-printed board. But if you have been playing for a while, you can also flip the boards over and get a blank board. And then it's up to you to make sure that you're following the rule that there can only be one of each color in each column and row. So it does add a little bit of added complexity and interest to the game if you have kind of outgrown the base one. We actually haven't played with that mode. We just play with the base game all the time. The game will end when someone finishes a complete row on their player board. You'll finish out that round and then you will look and add up the final scores. You'll also get bonus points for completing columns, completing rows, completing all 5 of one of the colors, and that's basically the whole game. So Azul is a modern classic. It's one that probably most people have played at some point. And like I said earlier, it's been an absolute hit with everyone that I've taught it to. Everyone has bought their own copy, taught it to their husbands, taught it to their friends, taught it to their family. So Azul is one that will be staying in my collection, and that is my number 66, Azul. Number 65 is a new game to the list. It is Sentient. Sentient was published in 2017 by Renegade Game Studios. It was designed by J. Alex Kevern with artwork by Chris Ostrowski and Gordon Tucker. Sentient is a fun little card game that includes dice, and I would consider it basically it's a math game or a dice manipulation game, if you will. So in Sentient, you are going to be creating a display of 4 cards in front of you underneath your individual player board. So at the beginning of each round, you have 5 dice of different colors. You will roll all of them and you will place them on the matching spot on your player board. Then on your turn, you will be drafting a card from the center display and you will be adding it to one of the 4 slots below your board. Each of the cards has a different condition that needs to be met in order to earn points for that card. For example, one of the cards might say that the dice on the left-hand side and the dice on the right-hand side both need to be even. It will also typically have a plus or a minus in the corner on the left and right side. So when you're placing it, you are going to increase or decrease the value of the dice that's in that location. So what you're doing is you're trying to draft cards that manipulate the dice in specific ways so that you can actually meet the criteria on all 4 of your cards if possible. You will have some helpers, which are basically just little tokens that you can use throughout each round to do one of 2 things. You can use them to block the plus minus on a card that you draft in place so that you don't have to adjust the pip value of the dice on the right or on the left, or both if you want to spend 2. The other thing that you can do with them is you can use them for area majority at the locations where you're drafting your cards from. So not only are you thinking about drafting a card that actually works for your player board and your strategy, but you're also placing one of your workers out at the location that you took the card from in the central display. And you can add your assistants with your worker when you do that. At the end of the round, after everyone has collected their 4 cards, you will score for the 4 cards depending on if you met the criteria or not. And then you will also look at the main display and see who has the majority in each of the locations. And each of the locations is going to basically look at the card slot above 1 or 2 cards. And whoever has the majority in that slot will earn the token that's at the top. And those tokens will become multipliers for the cards that you're going to score at the end of the game. So if you are the one who has the majority for where the pink token is at, then you'll collect that pink token and add it to the player board above your cards. And then at the end of the game, you'll earn a bonus for each of the pink cards that you completed throughout the whole game. This is a really sort of different game in my collection. It's not like anything else that I have. I originally picked it up because my oldest daughter loves math, and I thought that this would be a good one for her. And it's very strategic, and you have to think about how the dice are going to be impacted as you place those cards down and manipulate the dice. It's one that includes a fan-made solo mode from Board Game Geek, which I have played several times, but I also introduced this one to my mom when she was visiting the last time, and she absolutely loved it. So this is one that's definitely staying in the collection. It's not super popular. It's fairly difficult, I believe, to find. It's out of print. So if you find a used copy and somebody's selling it for a decent price, I say snag it and give it a try. But that is my number 65, Sentient. Number 64 is another game that has been on the list since 2021. This is a classic game that most people who are in the hobby have either played or heard of. It is the tile placement game Carcassonne. Carcassonne was originally published in 2000, although the version that I have is from 2008. It's the second big box edition. Carcassonne was designed by Klaus-Jürgen Werde and artwork by Doris Matthaus. It was published by Hans im Gluck, and my copy is also published by Rio Grande Games in the States. Carcassonne is actually the very first game that really brought me into the hobby back in 2008. It was a game that my brother introduced me to, and I just instantly fell in love with it. I love the idea of the game starting out with a single square tile in the center of the table, and then by the time you're done, you have this sprawling map that you've created with the other people that you're playing with. Carcassonne is a game that I've been playing pretty consistently since 2008 when I was introduced to it. It's one that I can typically talk my husband into playing. He enjoys it. I've played it with my brother and sister-in-law, my mom. Rory has played it and has played it on the app with me as well. This is another one that's on Board Game Arena, so we have played it quite a bit on our family game nights, either myself and my mom, or my brother and sister-in-law and my mom as well. So in Carcassonne, if you are not familiar with it, you will be building a map of tiles out on the table as you play the game. On your turn, all you're going to do is play a tile, and it has to connect to another tile that's already been played. The tile will have either grass, a road, or a city on the edges, and you have to match it up like a puzzle. So you can't connect a road to the grass or a road to the city. it has to connect and match. Once you've placed the tile, you have the option to place one of your meeples on that tile. You can either lay it down into the field to make that worker a farmer, which will not score until the end of the game, so it will be there for the rest of the game. Or you can place it on a road, you can place it in a city, or there are certain tiles that are all grass or grass and roads that have a small church on it that are called cloisters, and you can place your worker on a cloister. Everyone has a set number of workers, and it is possible and highly likely that at some point in the game you will run out and not be able to place more workers as you place tiles, but you'll still be able to place tiles and connect them potentially to things that you are already on. When you're placing workers, you cannot place a worker onto a city or a road or a field if someone else already has a worker on there. You can't just jump in to someone else's space in that way. However, if you place your meeple out and at a future time a tile is placed that connects two roads or two cities or two fields, then that's fine and you will share them unless someone can get the majority, in which case whoever has the majority will actually score for it. So it's a fun little strategy that particularly my husband and my brother like to employ, is trying to steal other people's roads or cities. You will play until all of the tiles run out, and then you will score any of the meeples that are still on the board. During the game, if you complete a city where it's completely closed off, there are no empty or open sides left, then you will immediately score the city. It's 2 points per tile that was included in the city. Same thing with the roads. If at any point you end a road by closing it off entirely where there's no open ends, then you will take your meeple back and you will score 1 point per tile for roads. If you completely surround your cloister, you will be able to take that meeple back and score 9 points for the cloister itself and all 8 tiles around it. Like I said earlier, the farmers stay out until the end of the game. They will score you 3 points per completed city that's in the field where you laid your worker down. Carcassonne is a fantastic game. It's one that I highly recommend as an introductory game. If someone is new to the board gaming hobby, this is a great one to try out with them. So that is my number 64, Carcassonne. Number 63 is Seven Wonders Duel. Seven Wonders Duel was originally on my list at number 10, so it has fallen 53 places. Seven Wonders Duel was originally published in 2015. I got my copy in 2019. It was designed by Antoine Bauza and Bruno Cathala. It has artwork from Miguel Coimbra, and it was published by Repost Productions. Seven Wonders Duel is a 2-player only game that was an adaptation of Seven Wonders. Seven Wonders Duel is a fantastic little 2-player drafting game, and a lot of games struggle to really incorporate drafting well at 2 players, but Seven Wonders Duel was specifically designed for 2 players to be a drafting game. And the way that they handled it is that you will set all of the cards out into a display based on the 3 ages of the game. So the game plays over 3 rounds. And each age, the card display will be set up just slightly differently. But in all cases, some of the cards are going to be placed out face up, and some of them are going to be played out face down. In all of them, they will be overlapping in a semi-pyramid fashion so that the cards at the bottom are available on the top. And then as you work your way up, you have to unlock those cards by taking the ones from the bottom first. As you take cards, if it unlocks or exposes a card that's face down, you will immediately flip it face up so that everyone can see what it is. This adds a really fun dynamic to the game where when you're playing against one other person, you're always thinking about, if I take this card, it's going to unlock the one above it, and I don't know what that is, and it could be exactly what they need. So it's this tension of, do I take this card that I really want and potentially give my opponent something that they really want unknowingly, or do I maybe take a different card and force them to take this one and reveal that card instead? You will also have wonders in front of you that you can complete throughout the game that allow you to do special abilities or earn you points. And the other fun thing that I like about Seven Wonders Duel is that there are 3 possible win conditions. One of them is that you get to the end of age 3, all of the cards have been drafted, and then you add up your scores. The other win conditions are immediate win conditions that can happen at any point in the game. One of them is that there is a military track at the top of the pyramids where you will be playing a little bit of tug of war. And so as you're drafting these red military cards, you will move the marker towards your opponent's side. You can actually earn coins and I think victory points by doing this in the game. But if you can get your marker all the way to the end of the other person's side, then you immediately win. It's a military victory. The other way that you can win immediately is through the science or progress tokens. If you can collect all of the different progress tokens, then you also immediately win the game. So it's very important to not only pay attention to what cards am I drafting to earn victory points at the end of the game, but you can't let your opponent run away with either the progress tokens or the military because you can just immediately lose through both of those methods. So it's one that I really enjoy. It has an official solo mode from the publisher that is a print and play, which is a lot of fun. It's very challenging. The different opponents are difficult to beat for sure. And they all kind of specialize in different areas of the game, so it mixes it up each time that you play. But that is my number 63, Seven Wonders Duel. Number 62 is a new game on the list, and it is Small Islands. Small Islands was designed by Alexis Allard with artwork from Aurélie Guarino. It was published by Mushroom Games and Lucky Duck Games here in the States. It is a 2018 game that I did not pick up until 2021, which is why it was not on the list earlier. Small Islands is a tile placement game that is very similar to Carcassonne in the sense that you are going to be starting with a very small number of tiles, in this case 4 tiles in the center of the table, and you will be building out by connecting tiles on your turn. So just like in Carcassonne, you have to match all of the sides. There are only island and water sides on the tiles, but there's lots of different configurations about how those are broken up. There's literally tiles where it's half water and half island on one side. And so it makes for some funky connections. But unlike Carcassonne, you are going to be scoring this game in specific rounds. And the fun thing about the game for me is that when the round ends is dependent on the players at the table. So you will be required to place a certain number of tiles out into the center before anyone can trigger the round scoring. But your goal is to create a whole bunch of small islands. And the reason is that you have 8 little huts or village-like tokens that you'll be placing out across the 4 rounds. And you can place as many as you want to in the round to an extent. I think you have 4 available each round that you can place. And in order to place these markers out on the islands during the scoring rounds, you have to meet the objective of your scoring card. So at the beginning of the round, you will actually draft scoring cards and you will decide which scoring card to keep and score for the current round. You'll keep one to use on a future round, and then you'll discard the third card back into the stack. But the scoring cards will have a specific objective. For example, the island has to have a temple and at least 2 anchors around it, 2 harbors. If the island meets that objective, then on the other side of the scoring card, it will tell you how you actually score the island. So when you place your marker out on it, you'll score the island and earn victory points based on your specific scoring objective. The scoring objectives are kept secret, so you don't know what your opponent is going for and what they're trying to get in the islands themselves as they're building it out. Once you've placed your hut on an island, you can never score that island again, which is why it's important to build small islands, because you'll have to be building new islands on each round in order to have enough islands to score all 8 of your villages before the end of the game. After a certain number of tiles has been placed each round, players are allowed to take their own personal ship tile and place it out onto the central playing area as long as there's a legal place to place it. The ships are water on all sides, so you have to make sure you plan ahead for that. At the end of the game, the tiles that are around your ship will score 1 point for every anchor icon that is visible. So that's another thing you're going to be considering. As soon as someone places a ship, then a scoring round will take place. You can only place your ship in a 4-player game, but in lower player counts, you can also place any gray ships that aren't being used. So in a 2-player game, there will be 2 gray ships that can be placed out. So no matter what, you're always going to place 4 ships out. The 4th round will end when someone plays the 4th ship or when the tiles run out. Small Islands has been a hit with me and with my family. I have played the solo quite a bit. If you want to know more about the solo mode and what I thought about it, I have shared a lot more about it in one of my 10x5 solo challenge videos, and I'll link that in the description below. But it's one that I've also played with my mom, and she requests this quite a bit when she visits. It is available on Board Game Arena also, so if you're wanting to check it out, it's available there for free, and it's one that I would definitely recommend you taking a look at. So that is my number 62, Small Islands. All right, to finish it out today, coming in at number 61 is Dragon Castle. Dragon Castle was originally on my list at number 8 in 2021, so it has fallen about 53 spaces. Dragon Castle was published by Horrible Guild. It was designed by Hjalmar Hawk, Luca Ricci, and Lorenzo Silva, and the artwork is from Sinyi Chiu. Dragon Castle is one of the first games that I picked up when I started my collection. It's been around for quite a while. In fact, it's been around long enough that I don't have a record of when I purchased it because I wasn't logging my games in Board Game Geek at the time. It was published in 2017, so it probably was around 2018, maybe 2019 when I would have picked it up. But Dragon Castle is an abstract strategy game with Mahjong-style tiles. And you will be creating a dragon castle in the central board with these Mahjong tiles. And then players will be drafting tiles from this central display and adding them to their own personal player board. Your goal is to create large groups of the same color tiles on your own personal player board. And then once you have 4 or more of the same color tile that's connected together on your player board, you will what they call consolidate those tiles by flipping them all over and scoring points for them. The larger number of tiles that you can group together before you consolidate, the better, and you will actually score incrementally more points the larger you can get up. Once you consolidate the tiles, depending on the type of the tile that you consolidated, you'll be able to place 1 or 2 shrine rooftops if you want to. The shrine rooftops will be worth points at the end of the game, depending on how high up they are. So if they're on top of just 1 tile, they're worth 1 point. But if you can get it on top of 3 tiles that are stacked, it'll be worth 3 points. Once you've consolidated tiles on your personal player board, then you can start adding new tiles on top of those. And then at a future time, consolidate those and do it again. You can build on top again. When you're drafting tiles from the central dragon castle, you will be sliding tiles that are accessible by sliding them out on the long side. You always have to take a tile from the topmost row of the dragon castle first, or layer of the dragon castle, and then you can do one of 3 things with that tile. You can either take a second tile that's an exact match from anywhere in the dragon castle that's accessible where it can be slid out, or you can collect a shrine rooftop for your personal supply, or you can actually completely trash that tile, discard it from the game, and earn a victory point instead. Once you get down to the bottom level of the dragon castle where everything has been drafted from the first 2 levels, then on your turn, you can, instead of taking a regular turn, summon the dragon, which will gain you a token with a dragon on it that's worth 2 victory points. Depending on the player count, there will be a number of these Summon the Dragon tiles available to collect before it triggers the end of the game. So it's a way for the players to determine when they want the game to end and prevent other players from potentially drafting more tiles and completing more consolidations and scoring points. This is a game that I have played quite a bit multiplayer. It is available on Board Game Arena, and it also has a really good app implementation that I've enjoyed. It also has a publisher solo mode, which is okay. It works fine, but what I found for solo play, and you can watch my 10 by 5 solo challenge from last year for this one as well, because it was one that I played, is that it's a lot of setup to create that 3-dimensional dragon castle board with all of the mahjong tiles just to play solo, and it being a beat your own score basically mode. So it's not one that I typically will pull out for solo, but as a multiplayer game, abstract strategy, entry-level game, it is one of my absolute favorite. The artwork from Sinyin Chiu is one of my absolute favorites. I would consider her probably my favorite board game artist, and it's just stunningly beautiful. The mahjong tiles are a nice like bakelite tile. They feel great in your hand. So if you have a group of 2 or more players that like abstract tile games, this is a fantastic one, and I would definitely recommend it. So that is my number 61 Dragon Castle. Okay, that'll do it for today. Thank you so much for joining us on this video. And if you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss the rest of the countdown. Until then, please consider subscribing to us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as well. Enjoy playing games with your family, friends, and even solo. Bye.